Hello Kutis. In part 1 Jnana Paravaigal stories, we heard how an Apsaras was cursed to become an eagle named Trakshi and how it died. Those things we saw, that story. In part 2, we heard the entire story of the 4 birds, the little ones of Trakshi. In part 3, I'll tell you what are the doubts which Rishi Jaimini asked to the wisdom birds and what were the answers given by that. We'll see in this part 3 story. Come, listen with me. When Jaimini reached Vindhya mountains, these wisdom birds, were reciting Vedas, and the Rishi was really happy and surprised to see that. The birds identified him and asked Jaimini to pose his questions. Jaimini asked few questions and the wisdom birds replied for everything. What are those questions? Let us see one by one now. First question was, why Lord Krishna was born as a human in Dwapara Yuga? Why didn't he be born as a god himself? Jaimini asked. The wisdom birds replied that when adharma dominates dharma, so when adharma takes its full form, God will be born as human to sustain dharma and he will kill adharma. So only he was born as human and not as God himself. The wisdom birds gave the answer. Now the second question he posed. In our culture, Jaimini asked, in our culture you all know that we have one wife for a one man, right? But why Draupadi became wife of Panchapandavas? That was his question. For this question, the birds gave a very small story. The birds told that there lived a rishi named Trishuran, and this rishi was doing tapas in headstand pose. We call it as Sirasasanam in Tamil. Okay, upside down he will be standing. He will be standing on his headstand pose. In that pose he was doing tapas. See how the rishi is doing a hard tapas. At that time, Lord Indran killed this rishi and hence got Brahmahati dosham. This Brahmahati dosham will get, it is a curse which will get when we kill rishis, brahmanas and all. So only they say you should not kill or harm the rishis or brahmanas and all. So this dosham, by killing this rishi, this Indran got this Brahmahati dosham. So what he did, he divided the sins he got from his action into 5 and gave shares to Yaman, Vayu and 2 Aswini Devas, and one part he kept for himself. So you got 5, right? So what he did, he divided the share of sins into 5. One part he gave to Yaman, one part he gave to Vayu, 2 parts he gave to Ashwini Devas, and one part he kept for himself. So the Panchapandavas, if you hear the story of how this Panchapandavas were born, we'll hear it in our stories, upcoming stories. Dharmaputra was born having the aspects of Yaman, Lord Yama, and Bhima was born with the aspects of Lord Vayu, and Arjuna had the aspects of Indran, and Nakulan and Sagadevan had the aspects of Ashwini Devas. So all these 5 Devas put together is Panchapandavas. The Panchapandavas had the aspects of all these 5 people, right? These 5 people had their sins part as well. Okay, that sins part, these 5 only shared, right? So that way, hearing all this, Sasi Devi, the wife of Indran, was witnessing all this, what was happening. She knew everything, all this she understood. So what she did, she was born as Draupadi to King Draupadan from the fire of a yajna performed by him, and thus marries Panchapandavas, who were the Amsas of Lord Indra. So what this Sasi Devi did, Sasi Devi is the wife of Lord Indra. So she knew all these things, these 5 aspects, and these 5 aspects will, from these 5 aspects, 5 Panchapandavas will be born. Everything she knew, she understood. So what she did, there lived a king called Drupadan, and he performed a yajna, and from the fire of the yajna, Draupadi was born. And Draupadi married the Panchapandavas. You got it? These Panchapandavas are the Amsas of Lord Indra. Now you got the connection? So only Draupadi had 5 husbands. This was the story given by the wisdom birds. Now the third question was posed by Jaimini. Why Balarama did not be a part of Kurukshetra war? For this, Lord Balaramana did not participate in the Kurukshetra war. He went on pilgrimage. You would know this when you hear the stories of Mahabharata and all. So, these wisdom birds told two answers to this question. Number one, first answer was, they told that Balarama was a teacher who taught Gada to Duryodhanan, the eldest son of Kauravas. You know, Duryodhanan is the eldest son of Kauravas, right? So, Balarama only taught Gada to Duryodhanan. So, he is one way he is a guru to Kauravas side. He will become a guru to Kauravas side. Then in the second, say, if I see from Panchapandava's side, he married his sister Subhadra to Arjuna, one of the Panchapandavas. So he became a relative to Pandavas. Hence he could not join either side, because for one side he is a guru, for one side he is a relative. So he didn't want to join either side, and if he joins one person, the other would be frustrated. So instead he went on pilgrimage to avoid the battle. That was the first answer told by the wisdom birds. The second answer is, they told the short story of Balarama. When Balarama visited a place called Naimisharanyam, Sudha Muni was telling stories from Srimad Bhagavatam. Seeing Balarama, he didn't stand and give respect. So Balarama became very furious and killed this rishi. And thus he got Brahmahati dosha. The other rishis who were listening to the stories advised Balarama to go on a pilgrimage for 12 years to come out of this curse. So it is said that Balarama could not take part in the battle and thus went to pilgrimage. So two answers you got for this question. Now, the fourth question Jaimini posed was, Draupadi had 5 sons popularly called as Upapandavas. You call Draupadi's sons as Upapandavas. 5 sons she had, each one from 5 Pandavas. The name of Upapandavas are Prativindya, Sutasoma, Srutakarma, Shathanika and Srutasena. These Upapandavas did not marry, they did not have family, they did not have attachment of feelings, love, affection, nothing they had, and they lost their lives in a very young age. Rishi Jaimini asked what was the reason for this. Now the birds answered. They gave a very short story again for this. Once there lived a king called Harishchandra, you would have known. He is a very popular king who is known to keep up his promises and words. And he gave a promise to Rishi Vishwamitra, and Rishi Vishwamitra wanted Harishchandra to fulfill his promise. So just to fulfill the promise of Harishchandra, promise gave by Harishchandra to Vishwamitra, Harishchandra had to sell his kingdom, wife, children, everything to fulfill his promise made to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra didn't give up his promise. He said he wanted the promise to be fulfilled. So Harishchandra sold his kingdom, wife, everything he sold to fulfill the promise given to Vishwamitra. Seeing this unkind treatment given by Rishi Vishwamitra, 5 devas called as Vishwadevas, 5 devas talked among themselves as to which hell this rishi will go. Like that they were talking, seeing the very bad treatment this Rishi Vishwamitra was giving to Harishchandra. These 5 Vishwadevas were talking amongst themselves only. Saint Vishwamitra heard this conversation and became very furious, and he cursed all the 5 to be born as humans. So the Vishwadevas felt very bad and they asked for Sapa Vimochanam, and at that time Rishi Vishwamitra told that they will be born as human beings, they will not have a family, they will not have marriage, they will not have the feeling of love, affection, anything. So they will not have any earthly pleasures, and thus they will be killed by Aswatthama and soon be back to Devaloka. So as per the words of Rishi Vishwamitra, the 5 Vishwadevas were born as Upapandavas through Draupadi, and they had no family and they were killed at a very young age at the end of last day of the war by Aswatthama. So as per the Rishi's curse and Sapa Vimochanam, they went back to their lokam. The birds told the story and conveyed that due to the curse they did not have a family and lost their family in a very young, lost their lives in a very young age. So the wisdom birds, like this, so many questions were posed by Rishi Jaimini, and he got the answers for everything, and clarifying all his doubts. These wisdom birds got their sapa vimochanam, they got their curse cured and went back to Devaloka. The story, thus there ends part 3 of Jnana Paravaigal stories. This stories of Jnana Paravaigal of part 1, part 2, part 3 is a very famous story from one of the greatest Puranas called Markandeya Purana. So you have heard a small story from a very big Purana called Markandeya Purana. Let us meet together with some other small story again. Bye bye kids.